Hi, welcome back to my channel. This time, I'll be recapping a film set in a small, remote town with numerous cases of missing women. Two foreign women, traveling together, accidentally get separated and experience the unexpected. Let's jump right into the film recap. The film begins in a small town in Argentina, notorious for its numerous cases of missing women. Two American cyclists, Stephanie and Eli, visit the town. Before continuing their journey, they buy bracelets from a souvenir stand as a symbol of their friendship. They then spend the night at a small hotel, planning to enjoy their last evening together before partying ways. The locals nervously watch them travel without a guide. Upon arriving at a small hotel, they are greeted by the receptionist, who also happens to be the owner, Rosa Maria, along with her husband, Luke. Maria asks where they plan to continue their journey the next day and mentions that the only bus departs at 8 a.m., as Maria registers them at the hotel. She notices they are traveling without a guide and expresses concern for their safety. Later, Maria's husband escorts the two girls to their room. While Eli is in the shower, Stephanie's phone rings, but she chooses to ignore it. At the same time, there is a loud knock at the door. When Stephanie checks, no one is outside. After that, the two women spend the night at the local bar, catching the attention of the male patrons. Stephanie's phone rings again, this time a call from her ex-boyfriend, but Eli urges her hesitant friend to ignore it and enjoy their night. A waiter then brings over a bottle of alcohol for the pair, purchased by another patron. Stephanie hesitates, but Eli, being more laid back, happily accepts the gesture. Shortly after, Eli orders a few more drinks, determined to make the most of their last night, even though they have an early departure the next morning. Not long after, an American man named Michael enters the bar, catching Stephanie's attention. Drunk and carefree, Eli changes the song on the jukebox and dances seductively, drawing the attention of a man named Kuka. Meanwhile, Stephanie keeps an eye on Michael from the bar. Eli then follows Michael, pretending that the women's restroom is occupied. This confident woman attempts to flirt with Michael, but he rejects her and advises Eli to stay close to her friend. After that, Kuka invites Eli to sit at his table and take pictures of her. Eli, who is alone at the bar, soon realizes that her friend is no longer there. Worried, she steps outside to search for Stephanie. Eli eventually finds Stephanie kissing Kuka. When Stephanie sees Eli, she tells her to go back to their room without her. Eli reluctantly agrees and returns to the room alone. On her way back to the room, Stephanie passes by Rosa Maria's room window and sees Rosa Maria arguing with her husband, Luke. The argument ends when Luke closes the window. At midnight, Stephanie is awakened by a sudden noise outside her window. It turns out to be Eli, who is drunk and making out with Kuka. The man stubbornly insists that Eli continue their intimate encounter at his place and insists on taking Stephanie along with them. When Eli firmly refuses, Kuka strikes her wrist against the window in frustration. Realizing her friend is in danger, Stephanie leaves her room and pulls Eli away from the man. They quickly rush back to their room and lock the door. In a fit of anger, Kuka repeatedly strikes the door, causing the electrical alarm to be disconnected from the socket due to the continuous blows. Disturbed by the noise, Michael, who is staying in the room next door, restrains the disruptive man by pushing him against the wall. Feeling outnumbered, Kuka leaves, threatening Michael as he goes. Meanwhile, Stephanie and Eli remain unaware that their alarm has been unplugged. The next morning, the two cyclists wake up late and miss the bus that leaves on time. With no other plans, they return to the hotel. Stephanie then arranges their next journey over the phone. To pass the time, she asks Rosa Maria about Villa del Lago, a tourist spot mentioned in an old brochure. However, Rosa Maria suspiciously folds the brochure and hides it. She tells Stephanie that the place is now deserted and suggests they check out other attractions instead. Rosa Maria realizes that the foreign guests have not left and calls her husband to the room next door. Meanwhile, Stephanie takes care of Eli, who is still drunk. Shortly after, the two cyclists set off on their bikes toward the waterfall near the forbidden Villa del Lago. Admiring the beautiful scenery, Eli persuades Stephanie to relax by the riverside and sunbathe a little longer. However, Stephanie insists that they leave soon. Eli, feeling more relaxed, protests, saying she is very tired and needs to unwind. Stephanie, frustrated, scolds Eli for approaching Michael in the men's restroom the night before. Eli realizes that Stephanie is uncomfortable with her bold behavior, and then suggests that Stephanie be more daring with other men, especially after knowing her boyfriend often cheats. Annoyed by Eli's blunt remarks, Stephanie packs her things and leaves. She waits nearby, hoping Eli will follow, but Eli stays by the riverbank, spending her time relaxing. A while later, Eli apologizes to Stephanie through a message and invites her to meet at the restaurant they passed earlier. However, at the same time, Eli starts to feel suspicious and wary, as if danger is looming. Meanwhile, Stephanie arrives at the restaurant but cannot find Eli anywhere. She leaves a voicemail for Eli, while Michael notices something suspicious. Michael introduces himself, offering a ride in his car. But Stephanie politely declines and continues her search for her friend. Meanwhile, Eli screams for help as she tries to escape from her captor, who drags her through the forest. When Stephanie arrives at the waterfall, she notices that Eli's bike is missing. Michael, who has been following Stephanie suspiciously, offers to accompany the worried woman in search of her friend. Stephanie tries calling Eli, but they only find Eli's phone lying in the grass. Michael notices drops of blood and assumes they belong to Eli. Stephanie, anxious, attempts to contact the police, but Michael doubts the effectiveness of the local authorities. Soon after, a police officer named Calva arrives at the waterfall entrance and greets Michael in Spanish. Michael shows Calva a photo of Eli and her phone. When asked, Stephanie explains that they had argued before Eli disappeared. Calva is convinced that the missing cyclist will return to retrieve her phone, and then returns to his car. Michael tries to stop the officer. Calva simply suggests that Stephanie looked for another friend. He adds that all of Michael's girlfriends often disappear. Despite the officer's rude attitude, Stephanie recounts the incident from the previous night with Kuka, suspecting he may have kidnapped her friend. Overcome with guilt, Stephanie follows the officer's advice to wait until the next day. However, she continues asking the townspeople if they've seen Eli, but the locals, suspicious of outsiders, ignore her. Soon after, Kuka notices Stephanie asking around and quickly runs off. This prompts Stephanie to chase him into the forest. The suspicious man crosses an empty road, forcing Stephanie to stop after navigating a dangerous trail. Kuka greets her and suddenly leaps away. Stephanie continues to chase him but loses track at the riverbank. Feeling desperate, Stephanie returns to her bike only to find that the spokes have come loose. Without her bike, Stephanie heads back to Rosa Maria's hotel to check if Eli has returned. However, she finds their room locked and empty. She notices Michael's door slightly ajar, so she enters without permission and searches through his bag. Stephanie discovers Eli's handmade bracelet. Suddenly, Luke enters and catches Stephanie in another room. With accusatory words in Argentine Spanish that Stephanie doesn't understand, he forces her to quickly leave the room. Afterward, Stephanie reports her discovery to Officer Calva. Calva promises to interrogate Michael and tells Stephanie to let him handle his duties. Anxious, Stephanie returns to the hotel and tells Rosa Maria about her missing friend. The hotel owner, shocked by the unexpected event, tries to comfort Stephanie. However, Stephanie catches a meaningful glance from Luke. Suddenly, Stephanie spots Kuka passing by on his motorcycle. Stealthily, he steals Rosa Maria's car keys and heads toward the truck. By coincidence, Stephanie notices the police car leaving, so she takes the opportunity to follow Kuka on the road. Soon after, Stephanie follows Kuka as he turns toward Villa del Lago. There, she sees a coded gate adorned with warning signs. Despite the danger ahead, Stephanie continues driving until she reaches barren land. She then proceeds on foot toward a partially collapsed building. It is there that Stephanie discovers Michael behind her. Terrified, she runs, fearing that Michael is the one who kidnapped her friend. However, Michael reassures Stephanie that he is not dangerous. Still skeptical, Stephanie shows him Eli's bracelet and accuses Michael of kidnapping her friend. To prove his innocence, Michael shows a photo of his friend Camila, who also wore the same bracelet as Eli. Michael explains that he and Camila were on a humanitarian mission. However, Camila went to the town alone to gather supplies and never returned. As a result, Michael vowed to keep searching for her. Stephanie, feeling desperate, finally realizes that Michael is also a victim, searching for his missing friend. They decide to work together to find both Eli and Camila. They begin to plan their next steps to investigate Villa del Lago and search for further clues about their friends' disappearances. Meanwhile, in another room, a wall covered with photos of missing women and a map pinned to the wall shows a mysterious location. It is there that Eli begins to regain consciousness. Meanwhile, Calva arrives at the quiet town where Stephanie's stolen car is parked. The police find Michael and question him about Stephanie's whereabouts in relation to the stolen car report. Michael denies having seen Stephanie and expresses doubts about the police's priorities in handling the missing persons case. Calva then invites Michael to join him in his car. On the other hand, Kuka is seen watching TV in a house. Eli, still half conscious, drinks water greedily under Kuka's indifferent watch. Eli secretly took a shard of glass with her bound hands. Seizing the moment when Kuka was distracted, Eli lured the man in for a kiss. As Kuka leaned in, Eli attacked him with a shard of glass. However, the kidnapper quickly overpowered her and raped her. Suddenly, Kuka's phone rang. He immediately answered the phone in another room, while Eli, feeling ashamed and distressed, cowered and screamed for help. In another part of the town, Stephanie, feeling anxious, spots Kuka's motorcycle near an abandoned building. She sneaks inside and discovers Kuka's hideout. Quietly, Stephanie shuts off the portable generator to distract the man. As Kuka becomes preoccupied with fixing the generator, Stephanie approaches Eli, who looks visibly distressed. Unfortunately, Stephanie trips over Eli's bike, drawing the kidnapper's attention. She quickly hides behind a pillar. Not seeing anyone around, Kuka returns to his work on the generator. Stephanie then hurries to free Eli. However, as they attempt to escape, the kidnapper realizes their presence and immediately starts chasing them. Eli strikes him with a wooden branch several times, trying to buy them some time. In a panic, Stephanie manages to start the stolen car. However, Kuka suddenly appears in front of the vehicle and smashes the windshield with a rock. Amid the chaos, Eli finds an insecticide spray and directs it into Kuka's face. The kidnapper collapses, writhing in pain from the stinging sensation in his eyes. The two women immediately ran away and found a police car in front of them. However, before they could ask for help, Kuka managed to catch them. He threw Eli to the ground and hit her head with a rock until Eli died instantly. Stephanie was shocked and filled with grief over her friend's death. With overflowing emotions, she attacked Kuka shortly after. Michael came to help Stephanie, and Calva arrived to separate the three of them. However, Stephanie realizes that Calva is working with Kuka based on their previous conversation. Calva apprehends Kuka under the threat of a gun and quickly orders Stephanie to get into the car for her safety. As Stephanie enters the car, she begins to notice something suspicious. Inside the car, Stephanie finds Eli's passport and realizes that Calva has been gathering information about Eli. She concludes that Calva is part of the plot with Kuka. Unfortunately, the car is locked, so Stephanie bangs on the window to alert Michael. Calva, no longer hiding his malicious intentions, plans to abduct Stephanie. However, Michael manages to seize the gun from the officer and points it at Calva and Kuka. Furious, Michael demands they tell him where Camila is. Calva insists that Camila is safe, but Michael doesn't believe him. Calva then offers a trade, Stephanie for Camila. Reluctantly, Michael agrees, willing to sacrifice Stephanie to save Camila. However, as Michael turns to face Stephanie, Calva grabs a backup gun and shoots her dead. That night, Calva threatened his female captive, Stephanie, demanding that she behave, even asking in a taunting tone if she was still a virgin. Feeling mocked, Stephanie responded to the threat with defiance. Unhappy with her resistance, Kuka handed Calva a pair of electric rods connected to a generator to torture Stephanie. Suddenly, Calva received a call from his boss in Paraguay, informing him that they had found a buyer for the American captive. After the call ended, Kuka put Stephanie to sleep using a chloroform-soaked cloth. preparing her to be transported. Soon after, the two men carried the unconscious Stephanie onto a boat that crossed the river to Paraguay, where they planned to sell her. However, Stephanie slowly regained consciousness. Cleverly, she grabbed the fishing net on the boat and managed to drop the unsuspecting Kuka into the river. The net got caught in the boat's motor, trapping Kuka. In the end, Kuka drowned to death. Seeing the chaotic situation, Calva chased after Stephanie as she jumped into the river. Stephanie hid under the water, desperately trying to free her tied wrists. Calva, with a flashlight in hand, searched for signs of the woman from the boat. Stephanie eventually reached the shore, but Calva jumped into the water and pursued her. On land, a fierce struggle ensued, where Calva managed to capture Stephanie and hold her at knife point. In a heated argument, Calva convinced the potential buyer to proceed with purchasing Stephanie. Despite the high risk due to her being American, in that tense moment, Stephanie seized the opportunity. She kicked the potential buyer, sending him falling, and used the distraction to make a run for it. Calva immediately pursued her, pistol in hand. Stephanie reached a nearby settlement and knocked on the window of a house, desperately seeking help. However, Calva, growing more ruthless, shot and killed the local resident without hesitation. Stephanie continued to hide, finding a knife as her last weapon, preparing for the dangerous confrontation ahead. She tried to escape. Calva cornered her. Stephanie managed to stab Calva in the leg and take the knife from him. She then seized Calva's gun and shot her attacker dead. As the sun began to rise, Stephanie, exhausted and battered, walked down the road with a stone in her hand for protection. Eventually, police arrived, taking Stephanie into custody and bringing an end to her grueling and tragic journey. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.